Billionaire sees homeless boy dancing for his paralyzed daughter. What happens next will shock you. If you want to see how a street boy turned a billionaire's mansion into a place of joy and hope, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more unbelievable stories, and share it with someone who needs inspiration today. The sun was high over Lagos, spilling its golden light across the sprawling city. At the very edge of Victoria Island, where the waves of the Atlantic lapped gently against private shores, stood the grand mansion of Chief Adewale Johnson, the man whispered to be one of Nigeria's wealthiest businessmen. His fortune was built on oil, shipping, and real estate. His reputation, a mixture of respect and fear. But behind the gates of marble and glass, his life was not as perfect as outsiders imagined. Inside, the vast hallways gleamed with imported Italian tiles, and chandeliers sparkled above like captured stars. Servants moved quietly, always careful to keep their voices low. Because in the mansion, there was one person who did not like noise. That person was Amara, Chief Adewale's only child. Amara was just 8 years old, yet her face carried a sadness far older than her years. A tragic car accident months earlier had left her paralyzed from the waist down. Doctors had tried everything: surgery, therapy, medication, but her legs remained lifeless. And with them, her spirit seemed to have gone. Every day, Amara sat in her wheelchair near the balcony of her upstairs bedroom. From there, she would watch the outside world, children playing on the streets far away, traders shouting in the markets, birds darting across the blue Nigerian sky. But she never joined in, never laughed. Her eyes were empty, her lips silent. Chief Adewale, despite his billions, could do nothing to heal her heart. He had brought specialists from abroad, hired the most expensive physiotherapists, even flown her to Dubai and London for treatment. Nothing had changed. And each evening, when he returned from his empire of boardrooms and contracts, he saw the same sight: his daughter sitting still, staring through the iron railing of the balcony, as if the world outside belonged to everyone but her. The staff whispered among themselves, "Madam Amara, no day smile again." Even the cooks, who adored her, admitted they hadn't heard her laugh in months. The once cheerful girl who used to run barefoot in the garden and chase butterflies now seemed like a fragile porcelain doll, beautiful but broken. On this particular afternoon, the air was heavy with heat. The palm trees swayed lazily, and the smell of roasted corn drifted faintly from a distant street vendor. Amara sat in her usual place, her small hands resting on the arms of the wheelchair. She wore a simple white dress, her hair braided neatly by one of the maids. Her eyes, however, were fixed far beyond the mansion walls. Chief Adewale passed her room before leaving for a business meeting. He paused, watching his daughter, his heart clenched. He would have given every naira in his empire to see her smile again. Yet money, for once, was powerless. Down at the gates, unnoticed by anyone, a boy lingered, barefoot, clothes torn, face thin from hunger. Chinedu, a 13-year-old who had lived most of his life on the streets. He had not eaten in 2 days. His stomach twisted with hunger, his eyes sharp with desperation. He had heard rumors that rich people often threw away food that could feed a family. And so, for the first time in his short life, he dared something dangerous, slipping past the servants and sneaking into the mansion. He moved quickly, sticking to the shadows, clutching his small bag where he hoped to stuff bread, fruit, anything at all. He didn't care whose house it was, rich or poor, as long as it gave him a chance to survive one more day. But fate had its own plan. As Chinedu crept quietly through a corridor, searching for the kitchen, a faint sound stopped him, the creak of a wheelchair. Slowly, he turned a corner and froze. There she was, a girl in a white dress, sitting in the sunlight that poured through the balcony doors. Her eyes, dark and deep, were staring right at him. For a long second, neither moved. The air was thick with silence. Chinedu's heart pounded. He expected her to scream, to call the guards, to have him beaten and thrown out. But she did none of that. Instead, Amara tilted her head, studying him with quiet curiosity. She could see his thin frame, his dirty shirt, the fear in his eyes. And somehow, instead of fear, she felt interest. "Who are you?" she asked softly, her voice carrying across the polished room. Chinedu swallowed hard. He had no answer ready. He had come for bread, not conversation. At that moment, under the Nigerian sun, two very different worlds had collided, one of wealth and sorrow, the other of poverty and survival. Neither of them knew it yet, but this was the beginning of something that would change both their lives forever. Chinedu's chest rose and fell as if he had been caught mid-crime, which, in truth, he had. His mind raced. Should he run? Should he lie? Or should he beg? He glanced at the open balcony door, sunlight pouring in, and then back at the girl in the wheelchair who refused to take her eyes off him. For a child raised on the streets of Lagos, silence was dangerous. Silence usually came before shouts, before chasing, before the sting of a cane or the heavy boots of a guard. Yet this silence felt different. The girl's eyes were not angry. They were searching. He stammered, clutching his small canvas bag tighter. His lips felt dry. "I came." He could not finish. Hunger, shame, and fear tangled in his throat. Amara leaned forward slightly in her chair, her braids falling across her shoulders. Her voice was calm, almost musical. "You came here to steal." Chinedu's eyes widened. He half expected her to scream those words, to summon a wave of servants and guards. Instead, she said it with a strange gentleness, as though she were stating the obvious, not condemning him. His cheeks burned. I haven't eaten." The honesty slipped out before he could stop it. For days, his stomach had been eating itself. He had slept under bridges, begged for scraps, danced for strangers on busy junctions, and still no food. This mansion was his desperate gamble, the one place where food surely existed in abundance. Amara's gaze softened. She looked at the boy's torn shirt, the dust on his bare feet, the hollowness of his cheeks. For the first time in months, she felt something stir inside her. Not pity exactly, but a flicker of connection. She too knew hunger not for bread, but for life, for laughter, for freedom from the prison of her broken body. "Don't be afraid," she said quietly. "I won't call anyone." The words dropped like rain on dry soil. Chinedu blinked in disbelief. "You won't?" Amara shook her head. "If you scream," she said, a tiny smile forming on her lips. "The guards will come running. But if you stay quiet, maybe we can talk." Talk. The word sounded foreign to Chinedu. People did not talk to him. They shouted, scolded, chased him away. Yet here was this fragile girl, in a mansion that looked like a palace, asking him to talk. He took a cautious step forward. The marble floor was cold beneath his feet. He glanced at the tray of untouched fruit on a side table, apples, bananas, even golden mango slices. His hunger clawed at him, but the girl's eyes held him captive. "Why would you want to talk to me?" he asked. Amara looked out at the balcony railing, beyond which the city stretched, alive and noisy. "Because nobody talks to me anymore," she whispered. Those words hit him like a stone. He expected arrogance from a rich man's daughter, mockery, maybe cruelty. Instead, he saw loneliness, raw and real. For a moment, neither spoke. The sounds of Lagos drifted in. A distant car horn, a hawker's call, the crash of waves against the island shore. Finally, Chinedu lowered his bag and, almost without thinking, lifted his hands. "Do you want to see something?" he asked. Amara raised an eyebrow. "What?" He didn't answer with words. Instead, he stepped into a patch of sunlight in the room, bent his knees, and began to move. It was not the polished dance of professionals, not the rehearsed steps of academy students. It was raw, untrained, but alive. His feet tapped against the floor. His arms swung. His body twisted and spun in ways that seemed impossible for someone so thin. Dust rose with his movement. The golden light turned his silhouette into something almost magical. For those few seconds, hunger, pain, and fear vanished. He was simply Chinedu, the boy who danced because it was the only language he truly knew. Amara's eyes widened, her lips parted. Then, as if a hidden lock inside her chest had been broken, a sound escaped her, a laugh. A clear, ringing laugh that she had not made since before the accident. The sound startled even her. She touched her mouth, as if shocked that laughter still existed inside her. Then she laughed again, brighter this time, clapping her small hands together. Chinedu stopped mid-spin, staring at her. You laughed. Amara nodded, still giggling. I can't remember the last time I did. Her cheeks glowed with a faint color, her eyes sparkling in the sunlight. For the first time in endless months, she didn't feel broken. And for the first time in Chinedu's life, someone's smile was because of him. Not his mistake, not his foolishness, but his gift. At that exact moment, the door to the room burst open. Chief Adewale Johnson stood there, flanked by 2 guards. His expensive suit glistened in the light, his sharp eyes instantly catching the sight before him. His daughter in her wheelchair, laughing uncontrollably while a dirty, barefoot boy stood in the middle of her room. The mansion fell into silence. The guards rushed forward, ready to grab the intruder. But Chief Adewale raised a hand. His gaze flickered between his daughter's glowing face and the boy's trembling form. "Amara," he said slowly, his voice deep and commanding. "What is going on here?" The girl looked at her father, her smile still wide, her laughter still echoing. For the first time in months, her answer came not with hesitation, but with confidence. "He made me laugh, Daddy," she said. "He made me happy." And in that moment, Chief Adewale, who could buy anything in the world, realized he was staring at something his wealth had failed to give. His daughter's joy. The room held its breath. Chief Adewale Johnson's broad shoulders filled the doorway, his tailored suit pressing against the polished wood frame. His presence was enough to silence a boardroom of cutthroat executives, yet here, in his daughter's chamber, the authority in his eyes burned even hotter. The guards at his side bristled, their hands tightening on the boy's arms, ready to drag him away. But Amara's laughter still lingered in the air, like a fragile song. It was so rare, so precious, that even the servants lingering at the end of the hall paused to listen. They had not heard such joy in this mansion for months. "Who are you, boy?" Chief Adewale's voice was thunder, rolling through the vast chamber. "And how dare you step foot in my house?" Chinedu's thin chest rose and fell with panic. His legs wanted to run, but the guard's grip was iron. He lowered his head, ashamed, his voice shaking as he spoke. I only wanted food, sir. I was hungry." Chief Adewale's jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed like blades. "Food? You break into my mansion? Threaten my daughter's safety for food?" Chinedu's lips trembled. "I meant no harm. I swear it on God." His voice cracked, but still, he stood as tall as his frail body allowed. Before Adewale could reply, a softer voice cut through the tension. "Daddy." Amara's small hands clutched the arms of her wheelchair. Her eyes bright with life for the first time since the accident pleaded with him. "Don't hurt him. He didn't come to harm me. He made me laugh." The guards looked at each other, uncertain. Even Chief Adewale blinked, caught off guard by her words. His daughter, who had spent months locked in silence, was now speaking with a spark he thought he had lost forever. "Amara," he said carefully, "do you understand what this boy is? He is a thief, a street rat. He does not belong here." Amara shook her head, her voice firm. No, Daddy. You didn't see it." He danced. "For me." And I laughed. Her voice cracked, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. "Don't take that away from me." Chief Adewale faltered. His empire had taught him to read numbers, contracts, politicians, but never his own daughter's heart. For months, he had spent millions chasing doctors and therapists. Yet none had brought the glow now shining in Amara's face. And all of it, he realized with a twist of unease, had come from a starving boy off the street. Still, his pride would not yield easily. "You may have entertained her," Adewale said coldly to Chinedu. "But that does not change what you are. Thieves deserve punishment. Lagos streets are full of boys like you troublemakers, liars, criminals." The words stung like fire. Chinedu's fists clenched at his sides. "I am not a criminal," he whispered, his voice trembling but stubborn. I only steal when I must. I don't want to. But I'm hungry. I have nobody. If I die on the street, nobody will notice." For a moment, silence again. The guards shifted uncomfortably, unused to seeing such raw honesty in their master's hall. Amara's eyes brimmed with tears. "Daddy, please," she begged. "Don't send him away. Don't let them hurt him. He's my friend." Friend. The word fell like lightning. Everyone in the room froze. Chief Adewale's daughter, who had turned away from the world, who had refused to speak to therapists, who hadn't smiled for months, was calling this street boy her friend. Adewale's throat tightened, though he hid it well behind a mask of sternness. He turned to the guards. "Leave us." The men hesitated. "Sir?" "I said, leave us," Adewale repeated, his tone sharp enough to cut stone. The guards released Chinedu and stepped back. Their footsteps echoed as they left the chamber, closing the door behind them. Now only the billionaire, his daughter, and the trembling boy remained. Chief Adewale walked slowly into the room, his polished shoes clicking against the floor. He circled Chinedu like a hawk circling prey. The boy stood still, sweat beading on his forehead, his eyes darting between the floor and Amara's pleading face. "You," Adewale said finally, "have broken into my home. If I wish, I can call the police right now and your life will be finished before it has even begun. Do you understand?" Chinedu nodded quickly, his voice a whisper. "Yes, sir. But," Adewale continued, his tone shifting, "my daughter is smiling, and for that, I must know why. Tell me, boy, what did you do?" Chinedu's voice grew steadier as he answered. "I danced, sir. It's the only thing I know. On the streets, when people won't give me food, sometimes they give me coins if I dance. It makes them laugh, even if only for a minute. I just wanted her to laugh, too." The billionaire's eyes flickered to Amara. She was still watching him, her face glowing with a light he hadn't seen since before the accident. Adewale turned back to the boy, studying him as though he were some puzzle. Dirty, thin, uneducated, and yet, in some strange way, powerful. More powerful than money, than medicine, than all the influence Chief Adewale commanded. Finally, Adewale straightened, adjusting his suit. "You will not be punished. For now." Amara let out a small gasp of relief, her hands clapping together softly. "But," Adewale added sharply, his voice like iron, "you will explain yourself fully. Where you come from, who you are, why you believe you belong under my roof. If I sense one lie, one trick, you will regret stepping foot in this house." Chinedu swallowed hard, but inside, something flickered. A chance. For once in his life, someone was asking who he was, not just pushing him aside. He met the billionaire's gaze, and though fear still coiled in his stomach, he nodded firmly. "Yes, sir. I'll tell you everything." Chief Adewale turned to his daughter. "Amara, if you wish this boy to stay even for a moment longer, then let him speak. But know this, your father is not a man easily fooled." Amara's face lit up again. She turned to Chinedu, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. "Don't be afraid," she whispered. "You made me laugh. That means you already belong here." And into the Sadi's Cleasers. And with those words, Chinedu's life took its first step into a world he never dreamed of. A world where his dance might mean more than survival, where perhaps even a boy from the streets could change the fate of a billionaire's daughter. The heavy silence of the room pressed down like the humid Lagos afternoon. Chief Adewale leaned against the edge of his daughter's desk, arms crossed, eyes sharp as knives. He had built empires by reading men corrupt politicians, foreign investors, ruthless competitors. But never had he tried to read a scrawny 13-year-old boy standing barefoot in his mansion. "Speak," Adewale ordered. "Who are you? Where do you come from?" Chinedu's throat felt dry. For a moment, shame threatened to choke him. Yet Amara's hopeful eyes gave him courage. He stood straighter, though his thin frame trembled. "My name is Chinedu," he began softly. "I come from Ajagunle. My mother died when I was 6. My father. His voice faltered, but he forced himself to continue. My father left. I don't know where. Since then, the streets have been my home. Chief Adewale's jaw tightened. Ajagunle, one of Lagos's toughest ghettos. He had heard the name in news reports, always tied to crime, poverty, gangs. Chinedu went on, his words spilling faster now, as though afraid silence might erase them. I dance at traffic lights. Sometimes people give me coins. Sometimes they laugh at me. Sometimes they chase me. But I keep dancing because when I dance, I feel alive. And when people laugh, even for one moment, it feels like I matter. Amara's eyes glistened. She had never heard such honesty. To her, he was not a thief. He was a boy, carrying wounds deeper than anyone could see. Chief Adewale tapped his finger on the desk. So, hunger brought you here, not greed? Chinedu shook his head quickly. Not greed, sir. I saw food. I thought if I take some, I can live one more day. His gaze dropped to the marble floor. I never thought I would find her. The weight of his last words filled the air. Adewale glanced at his daughter. Amara smiled shyly, almost glowing. It was a smile the billionaire had not seen since before the accident. For a long time, Adewale said nothing. Then, with a deep sigh, he gestured toward the untouched tray of fruit on the table. Eat. Chinedu blinked. Sir? I said eat. Before I changed my mind. The boy's body moved before his brain could argue. He rushed to the table, hands trembling as he picked up a slice of mango. The sweet juice burst across his tongue, and tears pricked his eyes. He ate slowly at first, then hungrily, as though afraid the food might vanish. Amara watched him with quiet joy. Every bite he took felt like a victory. She had begged her father for months to bring her playmates, cousins, anyone. But the house had stayed silent, cold, and empty. Now, for the first time, there was life inside her room. When Chinedu had eaten enough to calm his hunger, Amara leaned forward in her wheelchair. Show him, she said suddenly. Chinedu frowned, confused. Show him? Yes, Amara insisted, her small hands gripping the armrests. Show Daddy what you showed me. Dance. Chief Adewale arched an eyebrow. Dance? In my house? Amara's lips curved into a pleading smile. Please, Daddy, just once. You will see. For a moment, the billionaire was tempted to dismiss it as childish nonsense. But something in his daughter's eyes made him pause. This was not just about dance. It was about hope. Very well, he said reluctantly, his deep voice echoing. Boy, show me. Chinedu wiped his mouth, nervous again. He had danced for strangers at markets, for coins at junctions, for survival. But never had he danced under the gaze of a billionaire whose very presence felt like judgment itself. Yet Amara's whisper gave him strength. Don't be afraid. Just be you. Chinedu stepped into the patch of sunlight streaming through the balcony doors. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and let the rhythm of the city fill him, the distant horns, the cry of hawkers, the pulse of Lagos itself. And then he moved. His feet tapped against the polished floor, his arms cutting through the air with sharp, graceful lines. His body twisted, spun, leapt, defying the weakness of hunger. It was raw, it was untrained, but it was alive. Every step carried the story of a boy who refused to be broken. Every beat a declaration that he still existed. Amara clapped, laughter bubbling from her chest. Her voice filled the room like music. Chief Adewale's stern face betrayed nothing at first, but deep inside, something stirred. For weeks, he had prayed for a miracle, for anything that could lift his daughter's spirit. And here, before his eyes, a ragged boy from the streets was succeeding where money, medicine, and power had failed. When the dance ended, Chinedu stood panting, sweat glistening on his forehead. He dared not look up. A long silence followed. Then, Chief Adewale spoke, his voice quieter than before. You have courage, he admitted, and a gift. Chinedu's head snapped up, disbelief in his eyes. But make no mistake, Adewale continued, his authority returning. This house is not a playground. If you wish to step inside again, it will be on my terms. Do you understand? Chinedu nodded quickly. Yes, sir. Amara's hands clapped together. Her smile was wide, her eyes shining. She had not only laughed today, she had witnessed a miracle. Her father seeing the boy not as a thief, but as something more. And in that fragile moment, a seed was planted, one that would grow into a bond capable of changing all their lives. The Johnson mansion had always been a fortress, high walls, guarded gates, and silence that even the wind respected. But Lagos was a city that never slept, and secrets could not hide forever. For 2 weeks, Chinedu returned to the mansion, at first under the watchful eyes of the staff, who muttered their disapproval. But gradually, his visits became routine. He danced in Amara's room every afternoon, and each time, her laughter grew louder, her spirit brighter. The doctors noticed it first. Her recovery is unusual, one remarked to Chief Adewale. She's responding to joy more than medicine. This kind of improvement, it's rare. Chief Adewale said nothing, but deep down, he knew the truth. It wasn't the medicine, it was the boy. One blazing afternoon, the fragile bubble of peace shattered. A neighbor's maid had spotted Chinedu slipping through the back gate. By evening, whispers spread across Ikoyi. The great Adewale Johnson allows a street urchin into his home. By the next morning, the tabloids carried blurry photographs, Chinedu barefoot in the garden, Amara clapping as he danced. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire's mansion breached by street boy." Is Chief Adewale risking his daughter's safety? Adewale threw the papers on his desk, fury rising. Years of building an empire, his reputation untouchable, and now gossip threatened to stain it. When Chinedu arrived that afternoon, he was met not by Amara's smile, but by the billionaire's stormy glare. "Do you know what you've done?" Adewale's voice thundered. Chinedu froze. "Sir? My name is in every paper in Lagos." Adewale slammed his fist on the desk. "They call me a fool for letting you in. They think I've lost control." Chinedu's lips trembled. "I never meant—" "Silence," Adewale barked. "You are a child of the streets. Trouble follows you, and I cannot." He stopped suddenly when he saw Amara wheeling herself into the room, her little hands gripping the wheels with determination. "Daddy, stop!" Amara's voice was sharp, urgent. "Don't send him away." Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes fierce. She had never spoken to her father with such strength. "Amara," Adewale began, but she cut him off. "You don't see it? Since he came, I've laughed. I've lived. I don't care what the papers say. I don't care what the neighbors whisper. Chinedu is my friend." Her words struck like lightning. Adewale, a man feared by rivals and adored by society, stood speechless before the unshakable will of his fragile daughter. Chinedu swallowed hard, his voice breaking. "Sir, I'll leave if you want. I don't belong here. But please, don't be angry at her. She only wanted to smile." The room fell into heavy silence. For the first time in years, Adewale felt trapped, not by contracts or competitors, but by love. His daughter's happiness and his reputation pulled in opposite directions, and he didn't know which one he could afford to lose. That night, the mansion lights burned long after midnight. Adewale stood alone in his study, staring out at the glittering city. His phone buzzed non-stop calls from business partners, friends, even politicians demanding explanations. And then, through the quiet of the night, he heard its soft laughter drifting from his daughter's room. Amara's laughter. He closed his eyes. It was a sound he had thought lost forever. When morning came, Adewale made a decision. A dangerous one. If the world wished to mock him, let them. If society wanted to judge him, so be it. For the first time in his life, he would not choose pride or power. He would choose his daughter's joy. And with that choice, the storm outside the mansion grew stronger. For Lagos had only just begun to watch. The sun blazed high over Lagos, its golden light bouncing off the glass towers of Victoria Island. At the Johnson mansion, the air was heavy with expectation. Today was the day of Chief Adewale's annual charity gala, a gathering of the elite. where politicians, business tycoons, and celebrities came to flaunt wealth and power. But this year, something was different. Inside the grand ballroom, crystal chandeliers sparkled as the city's most powerful whispered behind their champagne glasses. Rumors had already poisoned the air. Did you hear? He keeps a street boy in his mansion. Unbelievable. Has Adewale gone mad? Chief Adewale walked among them, face carved in stone, but his heart thundered in his chest. He had invited Chinedu tonight, not to hide him, not to excuse him, but to show the world why he had allowed the boy into his home. When the music paused, Adewale stepped onto the stage. His voice boomed through the microphone. Friends, colleagues, brothers and sisters of Lagos, for years, you have known me as a man of wealth, of business, of success. But today, I want you to see me as something else. A father. The crowd murmured. Curious. He raised a hand toward the side of the stage. You have heard the rumors. Today, I will show you the truth. From the shadows stepped Chinedu, barefoot, dressed in a clean white shirt and trousers that the staff had tailored for him. For a moment, silence swallowed the hall. Then whispers hissed, like snakes. That's the boy. The thief from Ajagunle. What is Adewale thinking? Chinedu's heart pounded, but then his eyes found Amara, sitting in her wheelchair near the stage. She gave him a smile so bright, it cut through every sneer in the room. Dance, Adewale said simply, his voice steady. Chinedu stepped forward. At first, the crowd chuckled, mocking. But as the boy's body moved fluid, powerful, alive, the laughter died. His dance carried the rhythm of the streets, the pain of hunger, the resilience of survival. Every spin, every leap, every beat told a story the rich could never buy. The story of a boy who refused to disappear. And then, in the middle of his performance, something extraordinary happened. Amara, clutching the arms of her wheelchair, pushed herself forward. Her legs trembled as she fought against weakness, but she refused to stop. Slowly, painfully, she stood. Gasps erupted across the ballroom. Amara! Adewale shouted, rushing toward her, but she raised a trembling hand. I can do it, she whispered. I want to dance too. The music swelled. The crowd, once mocking, now sat in stunned silence as Amara took one shaky step, then another, moving in rhythm with Chinedu. Her laughter rang out, tears streaming down her cheeks. It was not a perfect dance, but it was a miracle. By the time the music ended, the entire hall was on its feet. Thunderous applause, shaking the chandeliers. Even the coldest critics stood, some with tears in their eyes. Chief Adewale lifted his daughter into his arms, holding her close as the crowd cheered. His voice, heavy with emotion, echoed across the hall. Tonight, you have seen the power of joy, of hope, of humanity. This boy, this son of Lagos, has given my daughter what money and medicine could not. And from this day, he will no longer be homeless. He will no longer be forgotten. From this day, Chinedu is family. The hall erupted again, louder than before. Chinedu's knees buckled as tears spilled freely. For the first time in his life, he was not invisible. He was seen. He was wanted. And as the billionaire held his daughter and the boy who had saved her spirit, one truth echoed louder than wealth, louder than power, louder than pride. Happiness is the greatest fortune.